Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. This is your host, Matt Brown. Already Friday this week. This is the last podcast of the week. Our third week of doing the podcast is already done. Again, your guys' support has been absolutely tremendous. I can't thank you guys enough. Hit 64 subscribers. I gained like 5 subscribers last night when I went to bed. Trust me, I count every single time from when I go to bed, from when I wake up. Like, I'm constantly checking it. I can't thank you guys enough. The TikToks have been really blowing up. I mean, again, just a massive amount of support. Oh, it's crazy. It makes me so happy. Like, I literally stumble over my words just saying it. And, you know, in a couple of weeks, today's the 8th, I start college again on the 26th. Again, I love being busy. I think I said this in my first podcast. I absolutely love being busy. And, you know, most people, I feel like starting college and having a podcast and studying to be a stockbroker would be a little overwhelming, but I love it because I wanted to take a break after high school. I graduated 3 years ago. I graduated in 2022. I'm 21 years old now. I took a break after 2 semesters of going to college. So a year of going to college. I took a break. That is like one of my biggest regrets because trying to come back out after that break is so difficult. And like, I always tell myself, even through high school, through whatever, like, God, I wish I want to get to the point where I don't have to be able to do anything. But then I was at the point where I didn't have to do anything. Like, I was doing basically nothing for a little while. I mean, it wasn't like a long period, but for a little while. And I just hated it. Like, I literally hated it. Like, I don't know. It just creates a lot of bad habits for me. Like, I don't know. I had some anxieties and I don't know. It created like a lot of bad habits. Again, I haven't had that stuff for a while now, but like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just glad to be able to be back doing something. And yeah, so let's get started with the podcast today. My first topic is the Anthony Richardson injury yesterday and just a little bit of the Ravens game, I guess, in general. I'm not really going to talk about any of the other preseason games. I know the Bengals, the Eagles, Seahawks, and the Raiders tied last night. Was it 23-23? I know Ashton Genty in that game had like 1 yard, or like a negative 1 yard and 1 rush or something. Yeah. I mean, who cares? It's just preseason. I thought it was pretty cool seeing Pete Carroll hugging all the Seahawks players and how happy he was. That's just, you know, that's not only a good coach, it's just a good person, you know, no grudges, nothing. Just goes out there and, you know, he went to 2 Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl there. Honestly, I know it was against my Patriots. He should have 2 Super Bowl wins in Seattle, but we all know what happened at the 1 yard line. Sorry, any Seahawks fans on here. I'm just, you know, just saying. But, yeah, and then I seen that Joe Burrow threw a touchdown to Jamar Chase. And, yeah, I mean, not too much going on in those games. It's just the preseason. But, you know, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones and the Ravens game, you know, a little more to talk about there. Daniel Jones last night, I didn't watch the full. I started watching it about halftime. I had kind of had a busy night last night. But especially when I was watching Anthony Richardson's first drives, and he just took the 1 sack from David Ojabo. I mean, first off, he was completely unblocked. Like, that's not necessarily Anthony Richardson's fault, but immediately hurt. Like, he said his finger was like literally pointing the other way or something, which it happens. Players get injured all the time. But I'll say one thing on Anthony Richardson is that there's 2 sides of the news for quarterbacks. And when you always find yourself in the news as a quarterback, it's either for good things or for bad things. And he's constantly in the news for bad things. Like Mahomes and Lamar and Allen are constantly in the news for quarterbacks, but they're in there for good things. Of course, you know, they get bashed. You know, they get on Lamar for not being successful in the playoffs. You know, stuff like that. Mahomes recently, is, you know, they've been calling him fat and stuff. Is that one picture of him that's trending with his shirt off and all. But they get praised a ton too. Like, those guys do get praised a ton. Anthony Richardson is constantly in the news for just everything is going wrong for him. Whether it's the shoulder injury in camp, he can't beat out Daniel Jones. Last year, he can't go above a 50% completion percentage. he ends up getting benched. His first year, I think he was hurt like the whole year. Yeah, they had to put in Minshew. Nothing is going right for him. He needs to find a way to put himself in the news for good things. And again, like some things are out of his control. Like him getting sacked last night and his finger dislocating or whatever it was. And it's not like a severe injury. Apparently he's going to be back in camp, so he'll be fine. But again, he needs to find a way to put himself make himself relevant in the good news. You don't have to necessarily put yourself up there with the Allens, the Mahomes, the Lamars or the Burrows or anything like that. I mean, those guys take flack all the time still, but like, dude, he literally gets no praise. Like everything about him is constant. Just, it's just nothing good. And I know I'm doing that right now, but you try to find the good things for him and you can't. It's very hard. You can maybe dig some things out, but a lot of the good stuff you try to find with Anthony Richardson is just potential that isn't there yet. And he hasn't really showed yet. Like he has some good throws and he shows you every now and then. But again, like I said, the only good things you talk about Anthony Richardson is potential. You're not talking about anything he's doing on the field at the moment because it just sucks. Like honestly, he goes out there and he sucks when he plays. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to talk about his play last night when he played like one drive or something. I'm not going to sit there and be all over him for that. I don't, and same thing with Daniel Jones. I mean, if you're competing with Daniel Jones, seriously, I'm not part of those people who are, okay, Daniel Jones is now going to break out that he's on another team. He's not a good quarterback. He was extremely overdrafted when he got drafted a while back. He has never been good on the Giants. Even the year they made the playoffs, he wasn't great. Like he was good, but they collapsed at the end of the year. They had a really good start and collapsed. I think they finished like 9-7-1 or something like that. I'm pretty sure they finished with a tie, but it was right around that record. And they did end up beating the Minnesota Vikings. Give him credit, won a playoff game. Then they got smoked after that. And he wasn't good after that. And I still don't think he's good now. I think he's one of those quarterbacks. He will just be a good backup. If you need someone to come in, your quarterback gets hurt for a couple weeks. He's not a terrible quarterback. He's not a good quarterback. But if he's your starting quarterback for the year and you're expecting to make the playoffs, Daniel Jones is a bad quarterback. If you have playoff expectations, he's a bad quarterback. But he's not a bad quarterback in the sense of that he can't do anything at all and he just looks lost out there and he looks completely outmatched. He's not in that sense a bad quarterback. He's a good backup. He's just stuck he's not a good starting quarterback at all. So yeah, I think, the Ravens and the Colts, I mean, the Ravens lost that, their 6th-round cornerback yesterday. Man, that was a really bad injury. I mean, he's out for the year. I've seen some reports it could be like a career-ending injury. It kind of reminded me of the Brandon Ayuk injury last year a little bit. It was bad. It was a bad injury. I've seen the videos. It was looked pretty gruesome, the leg injury did. So, prayers up for him. Hopefully he gets to come back and try and show out, show what he has, because it's tough enough, trying to make the roster, especially on the Ravens, where they're just loaded with cornerbacks as it is. Like, that's a tough team to make as the cornerback position as it is. And now, coming back from a major injury, you're going to miss a year, especially a huge development year, man. Your rookie year is a big year in the NFL. Get to learn a lot. So, just hopefully I hope he gets a chance at some point in the NFL, whether it's with the Ravens, whether it's with any other team. So, yeah. Next topic I have is my MVP favorites. My top 5. I have a couple of honorable mentions going into this year. So 1, 2, and 3, I think we all know. Lamar, Burrow, and Allen. You could put them in any order. If I had to put them in an order, I'd put Lamar at 1, Burrow at 2. I'd put Allen at 3. I know Allen being the former MVP winner, last year, you'd probably expect me to put him at 1. Him and Lamar, just kind of a lot of the arguments, Lamar should have won, whatever. Allen could have won too. If Lamar would have won it, you'd hear, oh, Josh Allen should have won that. And you can't really argue. I mean, voter fatigue absolutely, played a part in it, as it does every other sport that has an MVP voting. The NBA with Nikola Jokic, and LeBron is years and stuff like that. It's every sport. But yeah, I mean, you can interchange any of those three. I won't be upset. But the 4 and 5 and kind of after that is where it gets, a little tricky. I will say right now, I do not have any running backs because they just do not get running backs the award. I would absolutely have Saquon Barkley up there. I think he's an MVP candidate, but this is in terms of who I think is going to win the award, and they're not going to give it to a running back. So I'm not even going to put a running back on here. And I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. Is like I said, it's nothing against him as a player. Like, if it was me, I think he'd be a top 3 MVP candidate, but he's not going to win it. This is my favorites for the winners. So, I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from, but it's a quarterback award in this league. Not saying I necessarily agree, but it is. The last time a running back won was 2012 with Adrian Peterson. So, yeah, I don't know. That's just, I'm just letting you all know now that there is no running back, no receivers, nothing on the list, because this is my favorites for the winners. So at 4, this is going to be a shocker to most people. I have Baker Mayfield. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Baker Mayfield has turned into be an extremely underrated number 1 overall pick. That's just because he's in a draft class with Lamar and Josh Allen. If they could go back to that draft, he would be the number 1 overall pick. It's kind of funny because who would you take, Lamar or Josh Allen? You couldn't lose whichever one you took. I'm gonna have to put that in a topic in one of these videos coming up soon. Is who would you pick as your number 1 overall pick in 2018? It's gonna be a really good topic. That's interesting. Let me know in the comments who you guys would pick. Anyway, we'll go back to Baker Mayfield being number 4 on my list. Might probably a surprise to a lot of people, but I think on FanDuel he's number 8 on the list. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's in the top 10, but I'm pretty sure he's around 8 or so. I just checked about a half an hour ago. I mean, anyway, I know he's not in the top 5, but for me, he's a passing touchdowns leader last year, which I think he's going to have around the same season. Mind you, he didn't even have a healthy Mike Evans for a majority of the year, and he didn't have Chris Godwin for a majority of the year. I mean, it's pretty incredible. He's going to have those guys back, especially with Emeka. They drafted him in the first round. I think Cade Otton's going to kind of take another leap this year. I think he's been kind of a fringe, like good tight end. Man, and Bucky Irving, Rashad White, that's a pretty good running back duo, and they're good pass-catching running backs. I'm telling you, I think he has the potential to really jump up in the number 5 spot. Mind you, he threw, 41 touchdowns? He was the leader in the league, like I said, without a healthy Mike Evans all year and without Chris Godwin. That's pretty incredible. And he has weapons all around him. And those guys are healthy going to training camp. Man, all power to him. I really think, he stays healthy. His receivers stay healthy. That dude has the chance to win MVP. I really do, especially if he takes Tampa to be 12 and 5. It's going to be hard to argue for him not to be. And I think for as much upside as there is, it's hard for me not to put him in the top 5. If you wanted to put him lower, I get it. A lot of people are still kind of, they can't see Baker Mayfield being a top 5 MVP candidate, but I can, in my opinion. And at number 5, I had Jane Daniels. I think Terry McLaurin stays. And if he does stay, I'm keeping him in the top 5. But again, I mean, if he doesn't stay, I think his MVP chances definitely take a hit. It's a big contributor, especially in numbers and wins. I mean, both of them, they're going to win more games with Terry McLaurin, and he's going to throw more touchdowns with Terry McLaurin. So that plays a big part for me. But again, like I said, I think he's going to stay. So we'll see. Right now, as of August 8th, He's still technically on the team. I think they're still they're still having the contract negotiations at this point. The trade request is still there. So, but again, I think he is going to stay. So I have him at number 5. Some honorable mentions. I have Mahomes. Again, I just think Mahomes, in terms of talent, is an MVP caliber guy. Excuse me, sorry. Is an MVP caliber guy. But his numbers just aren't going to be there because he's not necessarily throwing to high talented guys. I like Rashee Rice. I like Xavier Worthy, but their whole scheme in general, they're not like a pass a ton of times, and he's not really out there trying to make the highlight plays. They kind of just grind the ball down the field and take time off, which can hurt MVP numbers. And he's won a lot. He had voter fatigue, even if he hasn't won in a couple of years. They're going to be kind of hesitant to give it to him. I think the league is really trying to push Joe Burrow, those kind of players getting their first MVP, maybe Allen getting back-to-back. Then I have Jordan Love and Jared Goff. I know a lot of people may not agree with me about Jared Goff, and I get it. I don't think he's going to win necessarily, but he's going to have the numbers to be up there. He's an arsenal of weapons on that offense. I know you guys are like, well, where's Justin Herbert? Maybe even Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, you could honestly toss in for Jared Goff and Justin Herbert. Absolutely. I just have Jared Goff up there because he's going to put up big regular season numbers. He's a loaded offense. I'm not necessarily saying he's as good as those guys, but numbers-wise, it plays a part in the MVP voting, and he's going to have big numbers. He has got big-time passing yards, passing touchdowns. This guy's everywhere on the offense, man. Herbert, them losing Rashawn Slater yesterday, which I'm talking about in a little bit, I think kind of hurts. Again, man, that's a team who's going to run the ball a lot as well. I think sometimes his numbers take a hit because of that. Jim Harbaugh is not necessarily a pass-first kind of guy. They drafted a running back in the first round. They've invested in the offensive line a lot. So I think that just takes a dip on Herbert's numbers a lot. And that, again, that's not a team who wants to play from behind anyway, as it is. So, again, they're going to be kind of playing ahead. They're going to be playing close, and they're going to be running the ball. It's not going to be good for his numbers. And again, it comes out of the MVP numbers counts for a lot. We know he's going to have a winning record in Los Angeles, but he's not going to have the 40 touchdowns to whatever ratio. It's probably going to be in the high 20s. So we'll see. And Jordan Love is going to put up big stats, of course. Again, he doesn't have Jamar Chase, a top tier guy. Solid receivers all around. He makes plays. He's good with his legs. He's a very boom or bust quarterback. He throws it 50 yards down the field about 4 times a game, and that can lead to turnovers or touchdowns. And especially when you're that kind of quarterback, you're going to put up big numbers. You're going to be in that conversation. You're a good quarterback as it is anyway. So, again, if you guys have anyone else who'd put in there, you have any dark horses, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. But those are just my guys for now. You can flip-flop any of them around. I wouldn't necessarily complain at all. I think all those guys have a shot at winning the MVP. That's why I have them in there. When you start talking about Jared Goff and Herbert and Jalen Hurts. Let me speak on Jalen Hurts for a sec. Again, Jalen Hurts sharing the rock with a lot of people. A lot of Saquon Barkley is probably going to go for 2,000 yards. That's a lot of numbers to share with somebody. It is. And, they started really running the ball at the end of last year. He's a rushing touchdown kind of guy anyway. But, I think he'll be in the top 10. So, again, I think that's only 8 I have on there. Yeah, 8. So Herbert and Hurts really round off my top 10 anyway. But, again, you can flip any of those guys around. If you guys have any surprises, again, let me know in the comments, man. I'd love to hear it. I had one of them, Drake May, I had as maybe a dark horse, but I figured I'd probably get, thrown out of my podcast and being told, how's this guy have a podcast? I'll put Drake May on there. But we'll see. Because remember this, if Drake May's nearing the top 10, I'm going to mention this all throughout the season. So next topic, I have, why is the AFC West so competitive in 2025? I had a friend ask me this the other day about the AFC West. And I had some people comment. I had some people comment on my TikTok a few weeks ago. One of my first ones I posted when I said I think the NFC North is one of the tougher divisions in football. And if I could go back, I'd probably I wouldn't necessarily change it. Or no, the AFC North, excuse me. Because the NFC North absolutely is, but the NFC North absolutely is, but the AFC North, I'd exchange out with the AFC West. Because I had the AFC North as like the second most competitive, but I'd switch out for the AFC West now. The Raiders are better than Cleveland, and I think the Broncos and the Chargers are better than Pittsburgh and even Cincinnati. So, again, I don't necessarily know if any of those teams are better than Baltimore, including Kansas City, but that whole division is very competitive. I think the Raiders are going to be good. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs because their division's so hard. But I think if they played in even the NFC South or something, they'd be competing for a playoff spot because that team's good. They're just in the second best division in football. And some may argue the first, and I get it. So you just go down the list of the quarterbacks. Mahomes and Herbert alone are top 10 QBs. And Mahomes is number one of the last 7-8 years or so. Geno Smith is a good quarterback. I think he's built a little bit of an overrated reputation over the last couple of years. He's a good quarterback. He's on the upper echelon of guys, but he's good. To have that as probably your worst quarterback in the division, the worst quarterback in the division, is not a bad thing, man. That's pretty good. That's pretty good to have that as your worst quarterback is Geno Smith. That's saying a lot because he's put up some pretty good numbers over the last couple of years. Then Bo Nix is the third. I don't think anyone's arguing him over Herbert or Mahomes. I will say, though, I think Nix, what people forget is that he was the most pro-ready quarterback coming into the NFL. I don't necessarily know if we're going to see a big jump from Bo Nix. Like, we're not going to see like, when you see Caleb Williams and Drake May, like, there's going to be a jump, especially with Drake May. You guys already know my opinions on that. But Nix was a lot more pro-ready. He's a lot older than those guys. Played a lot more years of college than those guys in Oregon and stuff like that. I mean, and I know he played at Auburn for a little while. That dude has been ready to play in the NFL for a few years. So, again, I don't necessarily know if there's going to be that big leap. I think he stays around the third spot. But, yeah, I think, again, the quarterbacks are extremely competitive. Even look at the running backs. You have J.K. Dobbins on the Broncos. Did the Broncos draft R.J. Harvey? I'm right about that. Omarion Hampton on the Chargers. They have Najee Harris, Pacheco, and those guys on the Chiefs over there. Again, the Chiefs are just always, even if they pick up one out of free agency or whatever, they always make a running back good. And obviously Ashley Genty with the Raiders. I mean, the running backs, the receiving crews are pretty good down there. I'd say that's probably one of the weaker spots of the division is the receiving crews. Definitely for the Chiefs, for the Chargers, even though they just re-signed Keenan Allen, which I said they were going to do before they did. Even the Raiders a little bit. They have Bowers, they have those guys. Jacoby Myers. I like Jack Beck out of the draft this year. The Broncos, they have Cortland Sutton. Again, they have good receivers. Like, the whole division is good receivers, but not necessarily great receivers, at least to this point in their careers. I mean, Travis Kelce's on the decline. He's just older. I mean, that's not necessarily his fault. He just got old. Their defenses are really good. The Broncos, the Chiefs, the Chargers. I think the Raiders' defense, even with Crosby, is going to be good. Got Pete Carroll coaching the defense. So, I mean, just good, solid units all in the division. Going to be very competitive. I'm excited to see. I think that's the hardest division to predict, the division winner. I think, if you're playing it safe, you'll go Kansas City. A lot of people have downplayed Kansas City for the last 3 years winning the division, and they've kind of ran away with it still. So, again, I guess at this point, I'll still say Kansas City. I think Kansas City is going to finish 12-5 around that range. So, I'd still take Kansas City to win the division, but that's tough, man. That's tough. I don't think that's going to be a cakewalk like it's been for them the last couple of years. They've got tough games all around on that schedule now. And my last topic today, I have Rashawn Slater going down for the year. This was news that broke yesterday afternoon. Man, that's tough for the Chargers. That's a ground and pound team. You know Jim Harbaugh loves running the rock. He just signed a big extension a few weeks ago. That's tough. That's very tough. That's one of the best tackles in football. And you pair it up with Joe Alt, Zion Johnson. I mean, the very, very good offensive lineman, and you lose your best one. Man, I feel bad for Herbert and those guys because they're going to have a lot of pressure coming on, especially in the division. Like I said, there's a lot of good edge rushers and rushers in their division and just in the NFL now in general. Most teams have a star edge rusher, not necessarily to the level of like a TJ Watt or a Max Crosby speaking in their division, but they have good ones. And it's going to be a lot harder for them, especially guys like Najee, who Najee's not a fast runner. Kind of sometimes it looks like he's running in mud, but especially when there's a hole, man, he's going to find it. He's a patient runner. He's a guy who's always going to get you like a yard or so. And, again, for Herbert, it's going to take a hit on his stats a little bit. He's going to have a lot more pressure coming off that side. And that puts a little more pressure on Joe Alt, especially to really step up, even though not necessarily wouldn't have anyway. But, yeah, that's losing your tackle. People aren't going to talk about it like you lose your quarterback for the year. Like if they were to lose Herbert for the year, that'd be a lot bigger news than them losing Rashawn Slater. But you can argue sometimes it's nearly as bad. It wouldn't be as bad. If they had to go through the season with Trey Lance, even though he played good last week in the preseason game, but he ain't Justin Herbert. It would be pretty catastrophic, but losing one of the best tackles of football is still pretty catastrophic to the team. I think especially if the offensive line never stays healthy for any team the full year. They're constantly moving guys around and they're constantly, dealing with nagging leg injuries, ankles, whatever it is. Losing that is tough. It's tough because when you start losing offensive linemen throughout the year, you start like, damn, I wish you had Rashawn Slater right now. So, yeah. Again, hopefully he comes back and he's still a great player. I'm sure he will be. I don't see why he wouldn't be. But, you just have to hope the Chargers can have good luck on the offensive line this year and find a way to move past that. So, that's it for this week's podcast. Again, what a great week. We took in a big leap in subscribers. I can't thank you guys enough. I love your guys' interaction, your comments on the videos, the YouTube shorts, the long videos, all of that. I love it. The TikTok's blowing up. You guys have just been incredible. Thank you guys for a third week. I can't wait to see you guys again on Monday. Every weekend that goes by is a weekend closer to the NFL season. We're getting there, guys. We are really getting there. And I'm so excited. I know you guys are as well. And I will see you guys on Monday, and everyone have a great weekend.